Looks like the time has finally come.
This isn't an ordinary island. Once you step onto its shores, you're redefined as prey. Your days, hours, seconds, they're numbered now. Any life you had before you arrived here, consider it gone. Your destiny is no longer in your hands, determined by who finds you first. Your only options? Pray that death comes quickly. In this episode, we will visit one of the most dangerous cinematic universes in history, Skull Island. Except this island is different, filled to the brim with predators that will not think twice before sinking their teeth into you and enjoying the act of killing. A land so twisted that even prey animals can call you food. In the analysis platform, these test subjects will be shown no pity, no mercy, while we explain in detail the horrendous ways to perish on this island. Subscribe now if you don't want to miss the next wave of carnage. Goji Center now presents 10 Ways to Die in Peter Jackson's Skull Island, Part 1. Number 1. Peeled to the bone. Upon being dropped in this Skull Island, we can almost guarantee that you'll be dead within a couple of hours, doing things as simple as trying to cross shallow water. There is one creature around here that does not pass by any opportunity for an easy meal, especially given their large numbers: the killer eel. These predators prefer to thrive in large schools of up to 100 members, measuring anywhere between 2 to 3 feet. A single one of these eels may not seem like a threat, but add a few more into the mix and now we have an inescapable situation. These aren't closely related to real-life eels, but they are more related to lampreys. Their teeth formations resemble those of a cookie-cutter fish as well, perfectly shaped to slice flesh off their victims. Once the first one takes a bite, the blood expelled from the victim will drive the surrounding eels into a ruthless feeding frenzy, while stopping at nothing until nothing is left except a bare skeleton. You'll feel every bit of pain during this experience until enough blood has left your body, making you fall unconscious. Number 2.
Hey there.
Not
Guess who just
again.
found another way to save more money by switching to Food Lion private brand. And they have so many affordable items. Fajita nachos, coming up. And my family loves it. That's all I need to hear.
Bloodbath. It wouldn't be a difficult task to realize that swimming in deep water is probably the worst idea. There are many creatures to remind you of this, but today we will discuss one whose name literally means ugly wet lizard, the Odosaurus. This animal
I
can
never
measure
heard that.
anywhere between 4 to 6 feet in length. Its bulky build is what this animal relies on when hunting large prey such as this test subject. These creatures don't have gills. They rely on swimming up to the surface to breathe air. Except unlike humans, their lungs have a much greater oxygen capacity, allowing them to hold their breath for at least 3 minutes. We'd like to guess that this is more than most of you can hold your breath for. This animal's large mouth, equipped with straight teeth, will begin to grip a victim by the extremities and begin to swim downwards. The struggling motion will accelerate oxygen depletion in your body, not to mention the blood lost during this struggle. Any accompanying Odosaurus would grip onto other extremities, injuring them so much that swimming up to the surface would be more painful than just succumbing to these creatures. Fatigued, let out, and out of breath, there's not much you can do against these creatures. Number 3, Face Off. Not every animal on this island survives on flesh alone. There are some creatures here that enjoy the delights of plant life, fungi, and, of course, flesh. This next relatively known creature is known as the Avarasaurus. Don't let this hadrosaur-like build fool you. If you look closely, this animal has 2 sets of sharp clawed hands on its forelimbs, and very sharp rows of pointy teeth, which are used for gripping flesh, strong neck muscles to yank backwards to tear apart and consume its meal. Apart from this, this thing is also quite large. Some specimens range from 18 to an outstanding 26 feet in length. If one of these creatures is currently thirsting for blood, expect nothing else but a swift attack from this agile creature. Its swing and sharp claws would be strong enough to crunch through the upper part of the skull, pierce the brain, and leave the victim faceless, exposing empty eye sockets and nasal cavities underneath. This was a quick death, but this victim will now be swallowed in chunks. Its body parts digested in this animal's extremely corrosive stomach acids, leaving no evidence. Number 4, tree ambush. Perhaps the fastest way to get killed in Skull Island is spending prolonged periods of time in dense jungles. Being in these environments would make anyone fair game to get ambushed from all directions, from below, sides, and above. There's an animal in these jungles that does this in highly coordinated attacks. This is the Deinocanosaurus, whose name means terrible dog lizard, and lives in these dense jungles in packs of up to a dozen adult members with young. Measuring up to 3 to 4 feet in length, this makes them around the size of an average dog. Similar to wolves, for instance, they prefer to hunt in highly coordinated attacks, leveraging their knowledge of the dense forest to corner prey and attack from all directions, even from above the trees. These are avid tree climbers as well. Any victim running through the dense jungle would be surprised from behind or above with an attack directed to the neck or head. These animals would waste no time bringing a victim down, goring it from all directions. If fortunate, the initial attack would dislocate the neck, causing an immediate death for the victim. If not, then the unfortunate test subject will have to endure being eaten alive. Number 5, trails of blood. In the half-fortunate event that you manage to survive an encounter with the previous creature, there will be another animal that will head directly towards you once it smells your blood. Admittedly, there are dozens of creatures that fit this description, but now we will be discussing a creature known as the Malevolusaurus. This animal very much resembles the much more popular Dimetrodon, except this one is a lot bigger, measuring 20 to 24 feet in length. This animal's jaws open and close very quickly. Combined with its sharp, pointy teeth, this means that they are capable of splitting through flesh and bones with little to no effort. These animals prefer to crawl towards slow-moving, injured prey, such as this wounded test subject. Helpless and with little energy left, there will be nothing you can do except witness a massive predator crawl in your direction and eat you legs first, hurling your body using centrifugal force to rip you apart. At this point, you accept your inevitable fate as a contributor to this biome's brutal food chain and pass away, never to wake up again. Number 6, shoreline butchery. This island is populated with so many predators that just stepping onto its shores puts you in the scope of vision of a deadly, ruthless predator. We're speaking of the Pterasodon. This elegant, streamlined dromaeosaur looks like it would be a small creature, but can actually grow up to 16 feet in length. Its name means deadly, very sharp tooth. And as its name suggests, this animal's jaws are lined with thin-edged, razor-sharp teeth that serve for both cutting and gripping onto slippery fish, seals, and any other creature that finds itself on shore. Additionally, these animals are equipped with sharp claws on their hands and talons on their feet, used to pounce on prey and literally shred on contact. Another thing to note is those forward-facing teeth on the tip of the snout. These, if used to stab at a victim's chest, will cut right through the fleshy layers of a victim's chest. And if aimed at the stomach, this victim's intestines will be relatively easy to pull out like ropes from a bucket. The killing factor of this dinosaur is the sharpness of the weapons, meaning that blood loss will be so abundant that the victim will die in a few seconds from shock.
French is so bright, classic Cuban smooth beats, barbecue or roast beef. French's mustard creamy too. Make it classic or now smooth and creamy. French's, flavor on.
Number 7, horned demise. Predators are not the only creatures responsible for the high mortality rate in Skull Island. Herbivores such as the Ferocatus would easily make quick work of a human being if caught at the wrong place and at the wrong time. This animal's name literally means horned iron hide, and the methods of killing a human vary depending on the point of contact you make on this creature's skull. Unlike the ancient iterations of ceratopsians, this animal has two distinct horns coming from its nose, pointing in different directions. The center is occupied by a bony knob, which could easily damage any small creature caught in between. A human running away who gets rammed by this part would instantly feel his backbone shatter, causing instant paralysis from the neck down. That is, assuming the head was not injured. The musculature of a Ferocatus is so developed along its back that it allows it to inflict severe injuries on large dinosaurs as well, such as the Vistatosaurus rex. But in the event that these horns make contact with the test subject's back, this victim would get impaled and torn in half from the force behind the blow. While your destroyed body lays on the ground, you'll be conscious for long enough to acknowledge what happened to you, but left alone to feed another carrion feeder. Number 8, Skull Splitters. Out of all the carrion feeders, the most dangerous of these were the flightless birds that resided on this island. Believe it or not, there were actually several species of predatory birds that competed for higher spots in the food chain. Today, we will focus on one of the strongest, the Zoropteryx. This resembles the ancient terror bird, except this animal was a lot larger, up to 6 feet to the hip, towering above many humans alive today. The most notable weapon of this bird is its very large and heavy beak, with a hooked formation at the tip. The weight behind the cutting power of these bites meant that they could easily cut through human limbs without any issues. Similar to the Malevolusaurus, except this animal makes cleaner cuts. A quicker, more effective method of hunting for this animal was to use its beak as a pickaxe of sorts. Leveraging the weight of this massive beak, if this tip manages to hit the posterior part of a running victim, it would cleave right through this skull, sinking into the brain, causing immediate death. It's lights out for this test subject. Its skull was not thick enough to endure the impact of this immensely heavy and sharp beak. Number 9, Blood Siphon. Swamps are reputable for being filled with unlikable creatures, and are never absent from horrendous surprises. This creature is the perfect example. The Estrovermis, whose whole name means glutton worm, will redefine the term gluttony. This parasitic crustacean measures up to 20 inches and is tipped with a peculiar spear-shaped head. Inside this head there are siphon mechanisms that allow this creature to suck out the blood and other fluids from the victim. In the event that a test subject sinks in its habitat, a few of these would be more than enough to deplete this victim's blood supply. These tips can sink a few inches deep into this victim, causing the sensation of stabbing wounds, and the pull of these suction mechanisms will make this deep wound feel all the more painful, as this animal siphons the last of your fluids. These are later expelled to nourish these creatures' eggs into the surrounding water. Up next is another parasite that will give you nightmares.
Abyssal chasm.
Death worm. Without a doubt, the most unlucky people to meet their end on this island are those unfortunate to fall into the deep chasms of Skull Island, the literal hell of this biome. This dark, murky environment
The
is home
world,
to some of the most
the true realm of
organisms seen in film
demons.
history. In this episode, however, we will feature the most repulsive of them all.
Meat weasel.
Measuring up to 13 feet in length, these slow and relentless creatures will stop at absolutely nothing to wrap their toothed sphincter on their next meal. The anatomy of these is simple. These parasites are described as animated, crawling stomachs, with sensors located in their maws to locate the flesh of a weakened nearby victim. These live in close groups, so in this scenario, we will see what happens to a victim that gets caught in a carnictus feeding frenzy. These will begin to chew at the extremities of a human, chewing until they get to the torso. This human is still alive until the point of ripping, which is what these teeth are for. These neck muscles allow them to crush and rip backwards, allowing body parts to travel down this creature's stomach. The point of death for this victim occurs at this moment. After the trunk of the torso remains, the carnictus will begin to pick at the remainder until nothing remains.
That was the most hellish place on earth.